yesterday to read that many more Nigerians are actually trying to find out what this is all about. Inquiries on Google, on the internet, more Nigerians are asking, what is global warming? What is climate change? What is environmental degradation?
As much as that is important, I think what many people will help themselves to do about that would be to even, maybe we should ask the question, global warming for dummies. Because, the more you are able to understand the issues, I think the better. But, the distractions of poverty, inequality, economic challenges overwhelm so many people.
As they say, bum.
That the more important issues of it's like, okay, the house is leaking, right? But your TV is not working, the antenna is not reading well. No, let me pay attention to the antenna so that I can enjoy being in-house. Hey, the roof is leaking. Why not take care of the house itself, and then you can enjoy living in the house? That's the way we should actually be looking at this issue.
My children haven't eaten, and you're telling me that the desert is encroaching. Make it they work how they come. Will they wait for them? I got to go look for food for my children first.
It's sad, but that's the reality many people find themselves in. And the attention that so many people give to clear and present danger, so to speak, it's so urgent to many people that giving attention to the more important problem of global warming, climate change, and all those other critical environmental issues don't give us attention, but don't go too far. How about just looking at the drainage in your area? How about just not throwing that piece of paper or trash
in the gutter
or
on the
out
road
of your car?
Yeah.
How about starting from there, right? Those are the elementary stages. And guess what? What you do, the children and the people you influence
are looking
at you. They are not hearing what you are saying.
They are seeing what you're doing.
What you are saying. Because, what you are doing is you are actually saying it, but not just non-verbally.
Yeah.
And I think that attention we should give that
anyway,
to ourselves.
We're looking at Earth Day in detail in today's program.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, remember that $800 million that they say will be shared to 50 million poor Nigerians? Well, the question that's been bothering my mind is, so we have been told that there are 133 million multidimensional poor people in Nigeria. So out of the 133, how is government going to decide which 50 million are more deserving of this measly 8,000 naira that they want to give them?
No. Each one of them getting 8,000 naira,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's begin from one of the issues that we've always looked at. When you told me this, the first question I asked was, look, let's even find out, what else $800 million could do for Nigeria and Nigerians.
A lot. So you give them 8,000 naira each, and they go to the market, and okay, they stretch it, and within 1 week it's gone. That's it. But you could do something with it that will be of benefit to all of them and all of us for a longer period
I remember,
than 1 week.
I remember, I think it was in the build-up to the 2019 election, when, the vice president and the federal government was being criticized for trader money, market money, whatever, all those other, and they were sharing, I think it was 5,000 naira and all of that.
Yeah.
I think one of the arguments that was put forward at the time was, we shouldn't look at the 5,000 naira in the light of urban Nigeria.
Okay.
That 5,000 naira would do a whole lot more
In rural Nigeria.
in rural Nigeria, for rural Nigerians, than it would for urban Nigerians. I agree with you. In fact, it got to the point that I also said that conversation around $1, $1 a day, you know, how many people $1 can feed in a day. We had that conversation, and I'm like, $1 a day or 1,000, 1 point whatever dollar a day will feed X number of people in a day, fine. But in rural Nigeria, it will do so much more. What I would buy for 700 naira in Lagos, oh my God, at once. In rural Nigeria, in my village, not too far from here, it will probably do like 3 or 4 times more. I agree.
Mangoes are going for 100 naira each in Lagos. Yes, small mangoes.
It's free in the village.
They pick it off the floor, the ground.
Free in the village.
You know?
But for how long? Is it just for a year, 2 years, 3 years? Or we'll put that $800 million into some investment that will last
sustainable
decades. I try. Please, you might be able to help us. How much will it cost to build a functional refinery, and how long? It's just my thoughts. Because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you want to cut money, you want to cut expenses, and you are incurring a debt.
We don't even know whether it's
which
a loan
will
or
be
a
serviced. No, I think that I checked. Some other people say, look, let's not delude ourselves. It's a loan.
It's a loan.
Hey, please, how will the World Bank give you $800 million? Exactly what
I dash you.
Exactly what investments? I don't know. Maybe I don't know how it works. Please, someone should explain to us.
What did you say to be able to get it?
And
you said you were going to give it out to your people?
So wait a minute. You invested in the World Bank, and your dividend was $800 million. I don't know. Please educate me. I don't know. Because young people are going to be wondering, what are these guys talking about? I don't know.
Okay. So,
by the way, sorry, just before we go off there, you know, we're talking about long-term investments, right? I know there's this conversation that a number of people have thought about. We've been talking about residential gas, you know, that thing. I mean, you don't need to carry gas cylinders all over the place.
Yes, gas is piped into your...
Gas is piped into your
residence, yes.
I'm just wondering, for how long have we been talking about it? I saw a report in October 17, 2000, and they said that the conversation was in advanced stage to pipe gas into estates.
In 2000.
Year 2000.
Yes, because in 1999, I was about to go and acquire a second cylinder or something. And my closest friend at the time, who was working at NMPC, walked in as this conversation was going on in the house. So we have to go and buy one. It's going to cost X amount. He said, don't even think about it. Of course, she working in NMPC
would know.
Says, we're talking about piping gas into residences, so we would, in a short while, we will no longer need gas cylinders.
That was 24 years ago.
And I thought, phew, so we don't have to be carrying these things up and down, going to buy. You turn a switch, and then there's a meter somewhere recording what you use,
the way it
and
is
how
with
much
electricity
you pay.
now.
That's right.
Well, I think
that was about around 1999.
That was 24 years ago.
And we still haven't got there.
I know the advance. You know, we moved from metal gas cylinders to fiberglass cylinders.
Well done.
Yeah,
well done.
It's progress.
In 24 years, that's progress.
Oh, come on. Even
right on.
Inching forward is progress.
Right on. I mean, my estate is very near a gas plant where we all go to fill up our gas cylinders. And I'm wondering, why couldn't that company just pipe the gas into our residences? And I was told a million reasons why it wasn't possible and how the estate could explode because somebody had left the gas on. And I gave up. I gave up. The war in Sudan and peace in the Sahel. That's where we're going to start this morning.
Very troubling and something that should give everyone attention. And of course, we'll be talking about IMO Charter of Equity. What does that mean?
Beke, as the Igbo man would say. And thereafter, we'll be looking at Earth Day.
And Lifestyle today is about home decor. Yes. No, that's technology, maybe some other time. But home decor, you know, some people, why do you have the kind of design you have in your house? How does it embellish your personality or not?
And how does it affect your mood
Yes.
in the house? Yeah?
Smart home, dumb home, and all those things.
Okay. And as is usual, we shall close with the artist of the week. And all I'm going to tell you is that he is a he.
He's the artist of the week. The artist of the week.
You want to go to the other room? We'll be right back to start the program in earnest. So get yourself ready by getting your
Cocoa.
or your
Cocoa.
cocoa.
We'll be right back.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's get the show on the road. We're living in a Sustainable Development Goals era, that is SDG, where most countries are trying to put their efforts to improving human development, infrastructure, healthcare systems, sanitation, climate, and taking actions to prevent environmental degradation. After more than 10 years of conflict and countering terrorism, the situation in the Sahel remains unstable, putting thousands of civilians at risk, causing massive suffering, and forcing millions of people to flee their homes. In these 5,000 kilometers long belt lands stretching from Africa's Atlantic coast to the Red Sea, the humanitarian situation is extremely concerning, and security challenges have reached unprecedented levels. At the root of this situation, multidimensional challenges combine in a complex interaction which increases the instability in the Sahel, but the areas of improvement are numerous in a region full of opportunities. Just to say that we are on the edge of the Sahel, so whatever is happening in Sudan as it is taking place now will sooner or later affect us.
Just to also say that, you know, quite a number of countries in the making up the Sahel stretches as far as some would say Libya.
Which is where our problem originally started.
From, and being made worse now by this conflict in the Sudan.
Yes, to look at this with us this morning, and maybe to help us look at how this can be brought to an end, we have Oyewole Ogini, Civil Military Interaction, Technology Warfare and Peacebuilding Researcher, Center for Development Research, University of Bonn, Germany. Guten Morgen.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, bonjour.
We also have joining us with Professor Demola Abbas, Professor of International Law and Global Security. Good morning, Prof.
Very good morning. Sorry, I can't say good morning.
Thank you for joining us today. Now, briefly, Mr. Ogini, give us a background into this crisis that we have on our hands right now. As briefly as you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very quite interesting question. I will first speak of Sahel itself. As you know, we always call it ungoverned space, which means a place that lacks state presence very strongly. Although we debate about this, but there are three things that characterize this conflict, and is the security, the state welfare, and the functioning system of the state, especially at the border side, where the presence of state is always felt very low. So if I now talk about Sahel, most often we always talk about Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and then most often we don't talk about Nigeria and Cameroon. And this part are also Sahel. In fact, if you go to the border side, you will see Sahelian. So these are another identity that these people wear themselves. So in this area, characterized by climate change, also deprivation, marginalization, if I may call it, in terms of, if you compare with the people at the center, then you will know that the standard of living is quite low there. And this also paved way for, for different non-state actors to also exercise control in terms of providing resources, to different people. And then we also see them as a messiah, in quotes, who can deliver them. So then this move to Sudan, I think maybe as we further the discussion, we will know better what is really happening. But at the moment, Sudan have a huge crisis. Over 20,000 people crossed from Sudan border between few days to Chad, and there's also militia within this border that could also affect Nigeria potentially. We will get back to that. Thank you.
Professor, with this very brief background, how is it therefore that we have two generals, should I say, heading the two factions that are currently at war in the Sudan? Isn't there any way of calling them to order?
Well, thank you very much. That's, again, a very interesting question on its own. If you want to understand what is going on today in Sudan, you have to go a bit back, maybe not too far in the past, but to probably about 2003, thereabout, when the decor crisis happened. And that was when al-Bashir's government decided to use the Janjaweed, which are the Arab Darfurians, basically, to attack the black Darfurians, which was a contestation of the resources between the herders and the land and the farmers and so on and so forth. But what was interesting at that point in time was that the Janjaweed rebel troop that the government relied on to prosecute that war against black Darfurians was actually headed by one of the two generals we are talking about. And that is General Mohammed Hamdan Dagolo, otherwise called Hemedti. He was leader of the Janjaweed. He's an Arab Darfurian at that point in time. So he was able to help the government of Bashar to suppress the black Darfurians, in which then he became incorporated informally by Bashar's government into his own government. That is, he headed the army, his own army, that's General Hemedti's army, was then transformed into what then became known as the Rapid Support Force for the government of Bashar. Now, by 2013, Bashar then officially constituted the RSF into a distinct unit of army, which was not integrated into the national army, but it was functioning side by side, the Sudanese National Army. So that was headed by Dagolo himself. And that obviously pleased the head of state then, that President al-Bashir, because he was able to use the RSF for whatever insurrections he wanted to quell or whatever counter-insurgency, just as Idris Deby in Chad did in those days, being paid for by the United States and France. So that's one of the generals. But if you remember very well, by, I think, 2015, thereabout, when the Yemeni crisis started, Sudan, the government of Sudan then did a deal with Saudi Arabia during the Saudi and the Emirati intervention in Yemen, and they deployed Sudanese army, into Yemen. But the Sudanese army that was deployed into Yemen was headed by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, besides second general. However, he was on the part of the National Army of Sudan. But the soldiers he was relying to were mainly the RSF soldiers, basically, because the RSF soldier commanded by Emeti had become very, very powerful, more powerful than the National Army itself. So you have a national general, and that is Abdel Fattah, who was commanding a national troop in another country, Yemen, but relying on the rebels, on a band, of internal, rebels constituted by the same government. So you have an explosive, disaster already waiting to happen. So that was what the two generals, came. However, when Bashar was overthrown in 2019, there was a transitional government put in place. Of course, it was at the behest, obviously, of the second general, that's General Abdel Fattah himself. And they promised that there was going to be a transition. By 2021, they toppled that itself, and they then held power, in which case Abdel Fattah became the de facto ruler of Sudan with the National Army, but he was still happy to keep, Hemeti, and his RSF as, his deputy, who was operating with, outside. So they had that agreement 2021 written, albeit. And the plan was by the end of this year, 2023, there will be a transition to civilian government. Now, the current crisis then happened about, now, if we have that transition, who is going to control the National Army? Don't forget that General Abdel Fattah is the de facto president of the country. He is in charge of National Army. While Hemedti, that is Dagolo, second general, is controlling the RSF, which is far more powerful anyway. So they are present sort of leader and the deputy. The question is, if you integrate and do now transfer power, who controls the National Army? That is the pretext for the current crisis between the two generals. However, the more subtle pretext is the control for resources. Don't forget that by 2013, about 2017, the same guy, General Dagolo, that's Emeti, went after the Darfurians again and was able to capture the gold mine in Darfur, if you remember, after he captured Musa Hilal, who is a rebellion from the Black Darfurian. He captured the gold mine. So he had the gold mine. But so this, and since 2017, he has been pushing forward to have more resources, more control of resources. So that is the real, is a control of resources that is at the base of this. But they will tell you politically is how to distribute power between the two generals should a civilian government come at the end of the year, which is not, by the way, it's not possible to have a civilian government by the end of this year or anytime soon. I think that is the story of the two generals in a nutshell.
Well, even this nutshell is quite huge. And I think it dates way back, even before the independence. Let me go back to Mr. Ogini. I think it dates back even before the independence, because before independence, there were conflicts. After independence, there were conflicts, dates back even as far back as 1972. There was a ceasefire called and all of that. It would seem then, Mr. Ogini, that there is a deeper problem. Where we are going with all of these is how exactly this affects the West African sub-region and Nigeria specifically. What are the frayed nerves that need to be mended quickly so that things don't get any worse? So it would seem, Mr. Ogini, that there was never, calmness, complete peace in the environment until now, and that this is just a festering of something that existed before now that had only been managed until now, or isn't it? What are the deep problems of this unrest that has festered for so many decades?
I want to just say that, as Prof said, the military-aid group itself has served also international community. In what sense? The armed group controls some resources at the border, even close to the Chad, and this also area, try to cause some conflict with Chadian government. And at the same time, in the Libya route, they also serve to prevent the migrants who also want to find their way into Europe. So in this context, they also serve as a watchdog to control this irregular migrant. So this role that they perform in form of a state function actually make them to sustain themselves even right from before independence and up to now. So you could see that if you see the trajectory of Sudan, it starts from 1950s, the first coup, another coup, another coup, another coup. And you know, I was interviewing one of the Sudanese 2 days ago, trying to ask what was your opinion. And one of them said, you know what, we do not care about the two factioning leaders. They are just deceiving us. What we wanted when we protested on the street was civilian government. But they could not get that. The African Union could not succeed to get that. But the main point there now is about stability. In the past, people always say we want democracy, but the international community is more concerned about technical stability. I use the word technical stability to say, okay, if there's crisis here, we're going to also face the consequence, you know. So we just rather say everything is all right and let them get stable relatively. So this is the context. In terms of resources, there are also multinational companies that benefit from this conflict. The mining and etc. is one of the things. It's not just only the armed group. The armed group said to some people, they benefit quite a lot from them. Another delicate issue which you could look at is between Chad and Sudan itself. There are some resources, you know, if you could actually remember that Sudan also have a sanction in some area, but there are some particular resources that is not sanctioned. Sometimes these resources, there's a contestation whether it belongs to Sudan or it belongs to Chad. So this is a reflection. But the most importantly, which I'm concerned with, is Nigeria. Because as we know historically, Muhammad Ali also was trained in Sudan, who is the first founder of Boko Haram. So there's a relation quite well with Sudan and Nigeria's security context.
We will definitely get there because that's where it's all going, you know, this whole conversation. Prof, so you may also want to add a thing or two to what Mr. Ogini has said about these fundamental issues that have refused to go away. But add to your response, if you intend to, the fact that Nigeria has one country between it and the Sudan. If Nigeria does not share borders with Libya, and the effect of what happened in Libya has already been felt in Nigeria. I mean, it was something we'll remember, you know, former President Obasanjo has said over time. And there is just one country between Nigeria and the Sudan. How vulnerable is Nigeria?
Well, Ayo, it doesn't really matter how many countries are between Nigeria and Sudan, whether it's Chad, whether it's Burkina Faso, whether it's even South Africa, whichever country you put between, you know, what I'm trying to say is that the physical propinquity doesn't really determine most of the times the consequences you get, because when you talk about geography, it just like somebody asking you what is a regional integration. In those days, there was emphasis on geographic propinquity. But we do know very well that at the peak of communism, countries in Latin America, they fare closer to communist countries in Africa here than capitalist countries. But having said that, what is important to take away here is that, number one, we have extremely porous borders in Nigeria. Don't just kid ourselves about that. Then we have a lot of cultural inclination, be it religion, ethnocentrism, and so many other things that will permeate and will make all those kind of things very permissible. But before I come to that, let me just add to what Mr. Ogini said. And I quite agree with his analysis in terms of the causes, the ancient causes. It goes way, way beyond that in the 50s and 56 or whatever, when independent. If you go back, maybe if you want to go back down to a long term during the Khalifa regime, 1888 to about 1893 or thereabout. You've always had this problem. For me, apart from what he said, you have to also add into it resource control, within the country itself. And that resource control, you have to take it. It's already spoken about the MTN, the multinational corporations, for instance. And we saw the role they play in Sierra Leonean crisis, in the Liberian crisis of diamond, of which obviously you can go and watch Nollywood movies, Blood Diamond, or even closer home here, Beast of No Nations and stuff like that. So there's resource control between, for instance, in Darfur, between between the Arab Jafarians and the Black Jafarians, between the herdsmen and the farmers and the agrarian. That is always there, pretty much like something that we had in Nigeria here. But when you also go beyond that, is the question of the tribal delineation of the country, between the Muslim North and the Christian South. But if you even begin to walk down, then you have a clear case of marginalization. And that is where we have to be very careful in Nigeria. Just like what happened in Rwanda between the Hutus and the Tutsis. Don't forget, 1994 was what they called genocide. There was a mini genocide in 1959 or thereabout, so on and so forth, because there was marginalization. And that is why what is going on in Sudan today is very, very difficult, very, very intricate. And that is because this is the first time that somebody from outside the Khartoum establishment will be taking this particular measure, and that is General Dagolo. He's not part of the Khartoum establishment. He's an outsider. And it's an outsider who feels that his tribe has been brutally marginalized for a long time. And that is a big challenge. So you have to understand that. Why I'm saying that is that he feels that he is of a particular tribe, and they cut across the Sahel. They cut across many countries in West Africa, down to Nigeria, down to northern part of Nigeria, across Burkina Faso, across Mali. It's just like the same price that you have in DRC Congo. You have almost 6 countries in that region that are affected, across border from Uganda to Tanzania. So you have to be mindful of all the implications of that. So for me, apart from all those things that the gentleman mentioned, you talk about the resource control, you talk about the tribal delineation of the country, then you talk about marginalization. And I think those are things that we have to worry about when it comes to in terms of the spill over. As we've said, look, only one country divides Nigeria. So physically, that is problematic. But the amount of also weapons that will wash, from Sudan into countries like Chad, we have to be very, very careful, because we already know what is going on in Nigeria today, and because of our porous border, we should expect a lot of, all we can hope. For now, I don't think the current government, which is outgoing, can do anything between now and May 29. But I think that is going to be one of the great priorities of the incoming government, to make sure that they address the issue of the porosity of Nigerians' borders, apart from other question of security that they definitely will have to address when they come in.
Mr. Ogini, this problem in the Sudan has been festering for some time, and with these 2 generals coming in now, it has hit the capital, Khartoum. And we just saw some footage there now of what was happening in the city. And even the end of Ramadan ceasefire that was called didn't seem to have had any effect. What is the African Union doing about this, because of the number of people who have been killed and the number of people who have become refugees in the neighboring states?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question you ask. I'm not speaking on behalf of African Union, but what I could say is that, yes, as I said before, the aspect of stability, what we call stability in international context, we need to start questioning it. When this agreement happened, after the protest, and then the 2 warring leaders came together, but the citizens who protested on the street did not agree with the agreement. So this is one thing that is still there. The second point is the militia leader itself started branding himself as a true leader to his people, as Professor Ademola said. So this also has effects on the acceptance which is trying to gain at the moment. Then the third point is IGAD. IGAD is another regional like ECOWAS, maybe not as strong as ECOWAS, which is charged, to address this issue. And interestingly, South Sudan president is on mission right now on that. But again, this will also come back to the people. How much people accept this agreement? Okay, so if people accept it, then maybe a transition could be possible. But the question is, the 2 leaders, are they really willing to leave power?
No.
So this is a question. Then on the resource control, I just want to delve into that, which we don't always talk about. The Lake Chad Basin, which concerns us so much, we only talk about climate change. But the Lake Chad Basin has a huge resources, huge one. According to evaluation, Nigeria is supposed to benefit up to $20 billion annually from natural gas and crude oil. Okay? Each time Nigeria tried to conduct any activities on this land, Boko Haram will attack, Iswa will attack. But I want you to know that since 2011, Chad has commenced exploration in its own part of Lake Chad. Niger did the same. And the French company, work alongside with these two countries and using the pipeline already developed by Cameroon itself, and then the exploration continue. So it's a whole lot of things about resources that we still need to look at when it comes to this conflict.
Well, Mr. Ogini, something you mentioned the other time, let me stay with you for a bit, about foreign influence on the Sudan. And how significant is that in the scheme of things? And why does it seem that the countries, the tribes, the national interests within the country, Sudan, are unable to mend fences, come together, and be one, refusing to allow those foreign influences to break them up?
Yeah, I mean, as you could say, Professor Ademola said something about Nigeria. Okay, if you want to say Nigeria is not influenced internationally, it's a question. It's influence. What we consume, the media, the social media, how much we trust local media compared to the international media is one of the ways this is influenced. So if citizens can believe much more the validation of international media compared to the local media, then that's the first thing you should think about. Then on the second point, if you look at Libya is called fragile state. Some say failed state, although I do not believe in the concept of failed state because Africa itself has its own customary, traditional system, which is still struggling to overcome. And this gives way to, for instance, the essence of traditional ruler who happen to be the first point of contact when there is a conflict. And then the system we still practice, even including Nigeria, I will not call it a true democracy, but rather hybrid democracy. Hybrid democracy in the sense that the people at the local area, they still believe in the traditional system and they could reach out to this leader when there is a conflict. And we are still trying to bring it, this idea of local government, this state government, in order to bridge the gap, but it's not yet happening. We will get there, but so this has a whole lot when it comes to how citizens get close to the government and how they cooperate. There was a project we conducted with EU on youth participation in this conflict zone, Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. I was there some time ago, and then I met one of the local chiefs in the far north of Cameroon, and he said, for the first time, we had never had this sort of interaction with our youth because they see us as an enemy. And we also say that they don't care about us, but now they feel that we are part of them. They can discuss with us our problem. So this is one of the dynamics of how collaboration could happen. And for Nigeria, you could also tell more about that.
Professor, we understand that even humanitarian work has ceased because there's no access, and street battles are quite common. How would you advise that those carrying out humanitarian work should access the people to be able to help them? Because many of them happen to be in dire straits, from what we're told.
Well, thank you very much for that. Look, it's always very difficult because you have people who are trying to do good in a very difficult situation. More often than not, international humanitarian bodies will rely on the goodness and the goodwill and understanding of warring factions. And that is why it's very important that even though you are a humanitarian organization, if you want to deploy to a country, it's better you always have the consent, so to say, of warring parties. Otherwise, you are going to open yourself to attack and stuff like that. There are rules of international engagement. For instance, again, there are bodies like Doctors Without Borders, the ICRC, the Red Crescent, and so many, which bodies have attained some level of international acceptability and acceptance in terms of their neutrality and in terms of their being able to do good in those. So they are already practicing the field. What is a bit disheartening is the inability of many countries to evacuate their foreigners, and Nigeria is caught in that. I'm sure if you've been following what Honorable Abikadabi has been saying for a couple of days now, who's in charge of the Akura, about the fact that the federal government of Nigeria couldn't uplift our students. There are 400 Nigerian students in Sudan, and that is simply because a couple of days ago airplanes were bombed down. So it's very difficult for air flights now to take off and get the kind of protection that we don't want to evacuate our students, we need to get them blown up from the sky. So it's a balancing act, and I think government will be talking to government of Sudan, talking to rebels to make sure they get agreement. And as we are doing that, obviously international bodies will be doing the same thing with their respective organizations with the conflicting parties in Sudan. It is, what is going on there in Sudan, just as you were saying earlier on, is a clarion call again, because I remember you asked a question about the African Union. You might not be aware. I was an expert for African Union for almost a year. Actually, I drew the memorandum on the understanding between the African Union and what we call RECs, Regional Economic Communities, in the field of peace and security, so that if there's a contestation, for instance, in terms of deployment between maybe a REC like IGAD that you mentioned, or ECOWAS, or SADC, or ECA, and African Union wants to deploy, the question is who has the first shot? Is it a continental or sub-regional organization? I drafted that MOU for the African Union between 2005 and 2006. And I remember very well when I was working on that treaty. And we made it very clear that, number one, we are a part of the global community. We can wait for the United Nations system. But the UN is not going to do anything in Africa unless it has a strategic interest in that particular place. Remember what happened in Liberia? The United States warship was sitting quietly in the waters of Liberia when people were being killed. At that point in time, the US had no impact. Javier Pérez de Cuellar was the Secretary General of the UN at that point in time. And he came out and said it openly, and I'm quoting him verbatim. He said, it is only countries in the area of conflict that should be expected to take the lead in the crisis. That is what you get when it comes to Africa. That is not what you get when it comes to Europe or some other part of the world where you are members on the permanent seat of the Security Council. But when it comes to Africa, it's a question of who has an interest. And that is why the effort of Nigerian government during the ECOWAS and ECOMOG interventions of the 1997 to year 2000 and beyond in Liberia and Sierra Leone should be commended forever, because without that, we don't know where we'll be today in this particular region. And ECOWAS proved to be formidable at that point in time. Unfortunately, and I have to say, African Union has not been able to live to that level. Basically, you have an African Union that is intrinsically very weak from within, yes. And I say that categorically. Yes. Two countries drive African Union today: Nigeria and South Africa. Then plus minus countries like Egypt on the side.
But why is that the case, Prof? Because, this same African Union, just a second, sir. Yes. This same African Union evolved from OAU. And the whole reason of becoming African Union instead of Organization of African Unity is for political reasons, so that we can be able to galvanize ourselves better. That was what was sold to the people. So what is the problem?
No, Ayo, it's a very interesting question, and I will answer it straight away for you. I will try to be as brief as possible, because you were asking me to talk about my PhD thesis as a whole. Now, part of the problem with OAU was the formation. When the OAU was formed in 62-63, Organization of African Unity was formed primarily to protect African sovereignty against colonial government. Not about people's development at all. That was not part of the agenda. Because OAU wanted to be the center focus to rid Africa of the relics of colonialism, still in South Rhodesia, that is Zimbabwe, and pretty West Africa, Southern Africa, and Namibia and co. You know, I could understand that when the OAU was formed, all independent states of Africa were brought in to be members. There was need for numbers. However, when African Union was going to be established in 2000, I was hoping, as many followers or observers were hoping, that we will have learned the mistakes of having every country in the continent being a member of the organization without having values that they must subscribe to. Let me explain to you. Today, the European Union is just how many countries in the EU today? You know, Turkey is one of the most powerful, most economically prosperous countries in Europe. It's not a member of the European Union. You know why? Because Turkey has not been able to comply with all the values of the European Union. So because of that, if a Turkish student is going to study in France, which is an EU member, Turkish students will pay the same fee as I would pay as a Nigerian. Turkey is treated as a foreigner in Europe. It's not a member of the European Union yet. Turkey is killing itself today to join the EU because Turkey understands the benefits that will come to Turks by being in the European Union. Farmers will get subsidies, they will get borderless Europe in terms of cross movement, they will get 500 million European strong market, and so on and so forth. So there are benefits for you to join the EU. But also there are sticks if you violate the regulation. If you violate competition law, you will be slammed by EU with billions of dollars they are going to pay. If there is a coup in your country, they will expel you from the EU, and you know what expulsion from the EU means, and so on and so forth. So you work to join the EU. And when you work out to join the EU, you know the benefits there. So you dare not violate that. Flip it into African Union. 2000, we called everybody again, come on, because we just simply transported everybody in the OAU to the African Union. I said, no, that was a whole mistake. And I wrote a whole paper. I said, what we need to do at that point in time to say, we are going to establish African Union. We are going to start with 6 democratic states. Just as the European Union began in 1957, you establish a small community. Put your criteria down. If you want to join the AU, you cannot have a military dictatorship in your country. It has to be democracy. No corruption, no this, no that, borderless. You establish all those. Pick 5 or 6 countries in Africa then. And I know them that will have been there. Ghana will have been there. Botswana will have been there. South Africa will have been there. Countries that have practiced democracy for a good number of years successfully will be there. Now, when they join, keep others out, including Nigeria, until we can prove that we maintain and fulfill all those criteria. Then one by one, begin to take us in. When a country works so hard to join the membership of the organization, they cannot just pull through the organization. Yeah. Let me ask you a question and the rest. Do you think the African Union today can suspend Nigeria or South Africa from AU? AU will die, I can tell you straight away. Yeah. I work for an expert. African Union will die. But today, Britain leading the European Union doesn't mean anything to European Union. At the end of the day, in other words, because they still have members that pay all the dues, that play by the rules. On the other hand, Britain today is actually feeling the pinch of not being in the European Union, and they begin to do some civil deals, not to join, but to be able to still enjoy certain things. What I'm saying in essence is that we lost the plot in 2000 when we began a new continental organization without value system or criteria that will be checked against democratic values and tenets that will be used, will be applied to memberships and to be able to bring them in. Look, let me give you the final example. Look at NATO today. If Ukraine were to be in Africa, it would have been a member of NATO by now. Make no mistake, it would have joined the European Union by now. But no, we support you, we throw euros to you, we throw dollars to you, we stand by you until you fight Russia to stand still. But we are not in a hurry to bring you in. Our values are our values. You must comport with our value system, and that is important. And what I'm talking about, this value system, is not only when you join the European Union. Go back to 1969. Greece, at that point in time, was just what we call an accession state. That is a state aspiring to join the Union. Greece was just aspiring, then there was a coup, Cornelius coup, in Greece. Greece was suspended by the European Union, even though it had not even joined at that point in time fully. That tells you the intolerance of the European Union for those anti-value systems. Now in African Union, and Mr. Penny said something very interesting the other time. African Union doesn't have a lot of legitimacy in terms of dealing with coups in Africa today. You know why? You have civilian government that are repressing their people. African Union doesn't say anything. You don't say anything. Then you have a coup, which is supported by people in that country. Then African Union Charter say, oh, we don't want coup plotters, we want to suspend you. So you don't want coup plotters, but you are happy to keep repressive civilian governments in power. And that is a problem. We saw it in Mauritania a few years down the road. ago. So what I'm saying in essence is that African countries have to wake up. African Union headquarters, the new one was built by the Chinese. You know what is interesting? There was going to be a conference at a point in time to raise funds. African Union was even begging for money from international donors. They are begging for money to host a conference to raise funds. I couldn't understand it. You couldn't even put your own money to have a conference to raise funds. So African Union is weakened internally, structurally is weakened, and I say that anyway. It's completely. So it's a group of. I don't want to repeat this again. I don't want to be uncharitable to African. It's our continental organization. We have to support it. Truth is, it does not apply muscles at all, and that is because foundationally it is weak. It cannot have muscles that it should have.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. What a way to describe the AU. But Mr. Ogini, Prof mentioned something in passing, which I think is more important than he tried to make us believe, the issue of Nigerians living in Sudan and Nigeria trying to get them out. And he said, our government will have to talk to their government. And I was thinking, so which is their government that we're going to talk to get our 400 students out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a quite interesting thing that we should reflect. If you remember when Ukraine crisis started, Nigerians and Africans, they struggle quite a lot. Okay, we have quite a lot of them that also move illegally to Germany and other move to Romania and,
Poland.
The response should be there's embassy. Nigeria has an embassy that's existing there. So this embassy is supposed to function. They built relationship with a specific government, so they really know what to do exactly. But the point is, the Nigerian in Sudan said the embassy was not responding to them. So this is another question that we have to reflect. So if the embassy couldn't respond to the Nigerian citizen, then what else could that be done? So I think this is very simple. So the government is always there. We have President of Sudan recognized internationally, whether there's a factioning, I mean, this is another question. So this legally constituted authority, somehow could find a way out. I think the Egyptian troops were taken from Sudan 2 days ago. So, and then immediately the Egyptian troops were taken, then the fight continued. So definitely there could be a way out. Many other countries are also trying that.
Well,
yeah, so maybe I just want to say to what Professor Ademola said, the point is EU is a supranational institution. So supranational institution is an institution that actually overrides the interests of nationality. So in that sense, the country itself, when they make law, if you look at what happened in Poland recently, Poland made a law against the children, and the EU said that is against the European Union, Court of Justice, and then that will be ruled out. The same thing with what is happening in Hungary right now. So when you look at African Union itself, is built based on strong men, the strong leaders. The control of the institution is based on the president rather than the technocrat who is running the institution. So this is, if you look at the policy, there are quite a lot of policy, there are quite a lot of Agenda 2063 of different dimensions. Even the African Peace Fund is funded by EU. Now that we have a Ukraine crisis, you definitely know that a lot will not go on there. So this is the issue. Thank you.
Does that then mean, Mr. Ogini, that the Sudan crisis is a hopeless one?
Oh, well, there's no crisis that cannot be solved. It all depends on how, how African leaders take this conflict. As Prof. Ademola said, we are the first to act. Then when we act, then others follow. Okay? If we don't act, then others decide for us. It is time for Africa, for instance, to start taking a position. You have to, that is what he's trying to say about, Ukraine, we are being with you, and this is the same thing. If we start taking a position, then the rest of the world will think about how to work with us. But if we don't take a position, they will take their own perspective, their own way of life, their own concept of development, their own way of democracy. They take it to us, and we must accept it. So this is what happened.
Prof.
Mr. Agini,
Okay.
Staying with you on that question that you asked, I would like your opinion about that. How have African nations been reacting to this crisis?
Well, as I said, I mean, IGAD recently, because it's the fragmented nature. As Professor Ademola also said, regional integration, we have what we call spaghetti, you know, this sort of spaghetti that we have within, for instance, Central African Union, they have CIMAC, they have another one, and you know, then you have within the SADC region, then you have Tanzania, who belong to the Eastern region, also belong to Southern region. Then we have the ECOWAS. You know, you remember Morocco wanted to become part of ECOWAS at some point. So this mushrooming of, I don't want to call it mushrooming, but I would say this mushrooming of regional institution also weaken the status of African Union. Maybe it does not. I don't know, but I would say this also affects how they could act. For instance, in the case of Mali, you know, if ECOMOG had acted, maybe it would have been much more effective than calling France. But the president at that time, you know, called France to come and intervene. So France came and intervened, but what we have today is still there, it's still the same. I mean, with more respect to French military who died in the course of that, you know. But if you look at it, the success of ECOMOG in Liberia, then you could say that at that time, the United States turned its back at Liberia. Liberia used to be an arm bag or a pocket of the United States, you know. So this is the situation.
Okay.
The African leaders need to act. They have African Union. We have the chairperson. Beyond condemnation statement, they need to act, and they need to get there. They have to find a way to get there and to call these people to order.
Well, Prof, just in 30 seconds, if you can help us do this, how do we insulate Nigeria beyond just other countries acting? How can we insulate Nigeria from this impending crisis, if I can use the term, in 30 to 60 seconds, if you can?
In closing.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, look, insulation is going to be difficult because we are part of a global community. But straight away, we can do that. You know, as I said, we need to tighten our borders. We need to engage regional partners. And again, that is when I talk about talking to government, their government. Of course, we don't talk to government without going through the embassy anyway. Our embassy in Sudan, like anywhere, is Nigerian government in that country. So that's obviously what I mean by that. So we have to be able to engage. You know, by doing that, at least, you know, we'll be achieving some things. And Nigeria has to, again, engage within ECOWAS to see what ECOWAS can do to secure West African region as a whole against that kind of the consequences. And again, within the African Union, Nigeria has a lot of weight in the African Union to be able to move countries in that country to quickly take decisions to be able to address the situation. But as Mr. Ogene said, part of our problem is what he was trying to say. We call it the spaghetti bowl effect, in which you have, you know, proliferation of regional organizations, like Sensad, which is in Libya. Nigeria is a member of Sensad. We begin to wonder, how can Nigeria and West Africa be a member of Sensad? So again, that's weak instinct. In terms of supranationality we talked about, that was precisely what I was referring to without the child, when I talked about we should have started in 2000 by building blocks. Because in supranationality, you must be able to give away part of your sovereignty. Otherwise, nothing will happen. So Nigeria needs to act, A, on its own as a country, tightening your borders, number one. Two, work within your region or sub-region, that is, go through ECOWAS to see what can. We have frameworks already that you can rely on within ECOWAS sub-region to be able to tighten our security and to be able to plan for the, if it comes to that, that you may have refugees, God forbid, just as in Liberia when they came to Nigeria. We have to be able to prepare for that. Then Nigeria should be able to work within African Union to be able to motivate similar countries. Final thing I would say is that in terms of talking, don't just go and talk to the government. That's why I say you have to talk to the rebel factions. One of the dangers you can have in an internal conflict is to go and talk to. Now, Mr. Again talk about the government, that the president, they have a president in Sudan who was recognized. Yes, you know, General, you know, Al-Assad is the president, but the party president, no doubt, but he's not controlling the most powerful army in the country. The most powerful army is vice president, and that's why you have to talk to all the rebel groups. Otherwise, you can.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor of International Law and Global Security, Ademola Abbas, who joined us via Zoom from Abeokuta. And we also had Oyewole Ogini, Civil Military Interaction Technology, Warfare and Peacebuilding Researcher, Center for Development Research, ZEF, University of Bonn, Germany. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us this morning, both of you.
Congregation, Parliament.
We'll get the answer to that question later, honestly. But let's take a look at this subject that you just saw just before we came on, because if there is one subject that generates much heat in the Imo polity during any election cycle, it is the Imo Charter of Equity. Now, this is a pact supposedly between the three senatorial zones in Imo State. Imo West, talking about Olu, Imo North, Okigwe, and Imo East, which is in Owerri, for the choice of the state governor to operate on rotational basis so that no zone is marginalized. Olu zone has 12 local government areas, Owerri zone has 9, Okigwe has only 6, bringing the total number of local government areas to 27. Now, the Charter of Equity has agreed resolved that power and ascendancy to the position of governor in Imo State be rotated among the 3 zones of the new Imo. Abia State was just carved out of at the time, beginning from Imo zone, Owerri zone, by merit. Merit, as quoted in the understanding, implied that every zone be allowed to serve out its tenure and allow the next to start on merit without aspirants or contenders from other zones. Now, does this Charter of Equity exist in Imo State? Where is the document? When was the document made? Who are the signatories? Why the violations, denials, accusations, and counter-accusations? This automatically brings to mind the 5 W's and the H of journalism. Let's have this conversation this morning with Prince Lemi Akakem, who is a member, Imo Elders Council. Thanks for joining us this morning. As well as Barrister Steve Asimobi, who is Special Advisor to the Governor of Imo State on Strategy and Policy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Barrister, apparently you are the only one we have for now, so let's just get on with it. Do you have an understanding of what this Imo Charter of Equity is about? Go ahead.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I didn't hear that. Okay. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
So do you have an understanding of what this Imo Charter of Equity is supposed to be about?
Yes. Over the past couple of years, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Over the past couple of years, there's been this talk about Imo Charter of Equity, in quotes. The stories have been flying around, but this is the first time, the very first time, a deliberate position was taken on the issue of the Imo Charter of Equity. There is a council set up by law in Imo called the Imo Elders Council. It's an establishment of the Act of the Imo State House of Assembly, with its chairman as His Excellency Eze Ilo Mwanya, who is the chairman, and with the secretary as Max Duru, PhD. And they met on the 13th of this month and put the Imo Charter of Equity into proper perspective and issued a communique wherein they stated, amongst other things, that for fairness and equity in Imo State, that power must rotate among the three political zones of Imo. Imo East, Imo West, and Imo North. That is Olu, Okigwe, and Owerri zones. Now, but with a caveat, which is very, very, very important, that the current governor of Imo State, His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodimma, due to his achievements, groundbreaking achievements in Imo State, that he must be allowed to complete his 8-year tenure. That means that by November this year, he will do another 4 years that will terminate in the next 4 years in 2027 or 2028, January 15th, 2028. Now, after his tenure, they specifically stated that the Imo Charter of Equity specifically stated that Owerri zone will take over from him and do 8 years. And when they finish, it will go to Okigwe zone, who will do another 8 years. Then it will come back to Olu zone. After Owerri zone, 8 years, and Okigwe zone, 8 years, it will come back. But all this will take effect after the 8-year tenure of the governor who is deserving of it, His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodimma. So there is no controversy about it. It's been in the rumor mills over the years that Imo, there must be equity, there must be fairness, there must be this and that. But this is the first time a concerted effort is made. The Elders Committee consists of bishop clerics. They consist of traditional rulers. They consist of industrialists. They consist of opinion molders in Imo, top government functionaries. So it's a well-composed organization set up by law, by act of parliament. So this is the first time it's been put into proper perspective. And I say this to you, that the future, and Imolites in future, will hail this governor as governor under whose tenure, for the first time, there's a concerted effort by a group of people to develop and put into proper perspective the Imo Charter of Equity. Thank you.
Mr. Asimobi, looking at where the governors have emerged from since Imo State, well, since 1999, we had Achike Odenwa from Olu, Ikedi Hakim from Okigwe, Rochas Okorocha, Olu again, Emeka Hedioha, Owerri, Hope Uzodimma, Olu. So we've had Olu 3 times, Okigwe once, and Owerri once. What kind of equity would you say that represents?
I'm not hearing that. I didn't get you. I didn't get you.
I just listed out the number of... I listed the governors that we've had since 1999. And from 1999 to date, we've had 3 governors from Olu, 1 from Owerri, and 1 from Okigwe. And I was asking you, what kind of equity would you describe that as?
Okay, let me say this. This is politics, and the political parties, governorship candidates and governors are products of their political parties. And when candidates emerge from parties, and they are sold to the public, and when they're sold to the public will choose the person they think best represents what they want. So and there's no time elections have held in Imo where people from all the senatorial zones do not emerge as candidates of political parties. From 1999 till date, candidates from various zones have emerged. There is no time people have said, let us wait. It is turn of Okigwe zone, let an Okigwe man go. Let us wait, let an Owerri man go. Or let us wait, let an Olu zone man go. No, there's been nothing like that. So if people that have been emerging are from one zone, or more people have emerged from Olu zone. Well, that is the choice of Imolites. But that is the essence why the Imo Elders Council are saying, let us intervene now. So I can streamline these things and make every zone feel like they are part of Imo State, like what's going on in Nigeria, where Igbos are clamoring to become presidents, or people are saying, let's move to the southern part of Nigeria. If an Atiku Abubakar has emerged as president, you're not going to say, no, you won't be president. If Nigerians voted for Atiku, for instance, and he becomes president, we're not going to say, no, you won't be sworn in because from the north or from the same place with President Buhari. And I dare say that at times we push this issue of zoning to the extreme. President Yar'Adua was president of Nigeria from Katsina State. When he came back to the north after President Goodluck Jonathan's 6 years as president, when he came back to the north, he not only went back to the north or to his geopolitical zone, he came back to the same Katsina State. And other people from North Central, Northeast, or North are not complaining. What Nigerians are looking for is merit. So while we put our eyes and do hope that all the zones will respect it, we're going to even start from now. Okay, there's a charter of equity now. That means that the people who have emerged from PDP and Labour Party and other parties, SDP and other parties, are they going to step down? Are they going to respect the charter of equity? Because that's what causes trouble. Now that the elders have spoken, now that the church has spoken, now that the intelligentials have spoken, the industrialists have spoken, everybody has spoken, we're going to put it to test. By good conscience, candidates of other parties, if they want to respect this charter of equity and allow it to fly the way the elders have put it into proper perspective, that means that they should allow only people from Olu zone, the governor specifically, should go unopposed in this election. But
Mr. Asimobi,
he should go unopposed.
Mr. Asimobi,
not just because of it, but because of his achievements as a governor in only 4 years,
Mr.
or 3
Asimobi,
years plus.
I beg your pardon.
Yes,
I beg your pardon. This charter also says that merit, as quoted in the understanding, implied that every zone be allowed to serve out its tenure and allow the next to start on merit without aspirants or contenders from other zones. I have just quoted this.
I didn't hear that. I didn't get that. I don't know why I don't know why it's breaking.
Okay, let me read it again. Merit, as stated in the understanding, implied that every zone be allowed to serve out its tenure and allow the next to start on merit without aspirants or contenders from other zones.
Yes, so what is the question?
Sorry?
What's the question?
No, I'm just making a comment on what you said earlier.
Yes.
Because we've had 3 governors from Olu, 1 from Okigwe, 1 from Owerri. So how is it that if it's supposed to move automatically from one zone to the other, that order has not been noticed in the appointments?
You are making a very, very big mistake. You don't have understanding of what I have said, and you don't have understanding of the document before you. This charter of equity has just been formalized some few days ago, on Thursday, 13th of this month. So it is moving forward. This is how we want Imo to roll.
To go forward.
This is what we want Imo to be like, moving forward. The charter of equity is just taking effect now.
Okay.
It's just taking effect now.
Okay.
That in November, they are saying the governor, because of his monumental achievements in road infrastructure, in health, in education, in bringing, attempting to bring, what's it called, dredging of Uguta Lake to Atlantic Ocean and others. Because of his monumental achievements, he should be allowed, part of the first clause, he should be allowed to finish his tenure. which will finish in 2028.
Okay, so from
After
2028,
that,
Mr. Asimobi
will take over.
From 2028, the next governor will emerge from Owerri.
Owerri zone, fantastic. Then by 2026, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
By 2036, another governor will emerge from Okigwe zone, 8 years, after 8 years.
Okay.
And they'll be on merit, not just anybody saying I'm from Okigwe zone, I'm from Owerri zone. Okay. You become governor. No, you must show cause why you should be made governor. Okay. You must have merits. That's what we're saying.
Well, Barrister,
the Charter of Equity has been, for the first time, under the administration of His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodimma, for the first time, Imo leaders are saying enough is enough. We must streamline these things to avoid any zone feeling surchanged.
So how do you respond
and
to...
And that the governor should be given first refill. He must finish his tenure first.
Okay. So how do you respond...
After which it will now go to Owerri zone.
Okay. So how do you respond to Chief Emmanuel Iwanyanwu's comment, who faulted the decision of the Imo elders, as you put it, and insisting that the Imo Charter of Equity favors Owerri zone in 2023? He said just a second. He said that those suggesting an Olu person continue after 20 years in office do not have the interest of the state at heart and urge the entire Imo people to unanimously vote an Owerri man to justify the potency of the Imo Charter of Equity.
So that is very, very wrong. That is not correct. That is not correct. That is not correct. Chief Emmanuel Iwanyanwu, in fact, we put it in as paid advertorial. Chief Emmanuel Iwanyanwu has discountenanced that information. He put out a press release reiterating everything the Imo Elders Council decided on. And he said he stood with them, that he was being misquoted.
Barrister,
I never said that.
Barrister,
I'm sure that...
This report was from a Channel's television interview, and this report is just 2 days old. Was it yesterday that he put out the paid adverts?
Yeah, he did a clarification. He did a press release. Press release yesterday, please. I have it on my phone. I have that press release on my phone. I'm sure it will be in some newspapers. If they give me my phone now, I can flash the information on my phone, from my phone.
Just to be clear,
if your guys say I will avail me of my phone, I'll flash it, and you can do a verification.
No problem.
So it shouldn't be subject of discussion here. He has yesterday denounced that or corrected that impression. Okay. He has done a correction on that. Right.
Just to be clear, I mean, you said that the ratification of the Charter of Equity was just yesterday or 2 days ago. How old?
No, I said 13th.
13th of this month. Okay. How old is the conversation around the Charter of Equity? Since when did this conversation around the Charter of Equity begin? For how many years have we been talking about the Charter of Equity in Imo State?
Nobody has been. The Charter of Equity, what Charter of Equity? Only emerged in the political hemisphere some few years ago, about 2-3 years ago, or 4 years ago. The issue of this conversation, about 3-4 years ago. And people are saying, but you see, in politics, the parties, like I said earlier on, the parties would go a long way in helping resolve this matter. It almost happened in Nigerian presidential election, primaries of political parties. If all the parties will agree that they'll make it easier for the implementation of this Charter of Equity, if political parties will adhere to what this charter has said by saying, okay, now, Senator Hope Uzodimma is going for re-election in November this year. If we have our candidates who are not from Imo West or Olu Zone, can you ask them to step down in good faith? Can you ask them to step down? Do you understand? Then we know that, yes, we are moving towards respecting the Charter of Equity. It's not, okay, in 2028 or 2027, for example, that will be the election year. If all the parties want to respect the Charter of Equity, they should make sure they choose their governorship candidates from Owerri zone in 2028, it makes it easier to comply with the Charter of Equity. But if they don't, Imolites might not have, okay, we're saying it should go to Owerri zone. If APC, PDP, Labour Party, SDP, ABGA choose their candidates from Olu zone, they will run for the election. So this matter now has been pushed on the doorstep of the political parties.
So how do you see that playing out? Because it's only people from Imo State that belong to political parties in Imo State that will vote in Imo State. Now, so far, the conversation has gotten to the level of, talking to the Elders Council and all of that. Is there a conversation in place or in the plan for the political class in Imo State? Because at the end of the day, it's a game of numbers. No matter what the Elders Council say, if the political parties, all 18 political parties or number of political parties active in Imo State do not go in that direction, then it may still not carry the day. So is there a plan by the Imo State government and Imo Elders Council to have a session with political parties so that this Charter of Equity can have a life?
You know why I'm trying... Okay, if you recall what happened at the before the presidential primaries in All Progressive Congress, our party governors, the governors of APC, progressive governors, irrespective of where they come from, insisted that presidency must move to South in keeping with the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And they followed it through. They followed it through, supported their presidential candidate from South, His Excellency, President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and followed it through. And today, they worked tirelessly to ensure that he emerged as the president of this country. It was the greatest act of political engineering in the history of this nation, where governors from South, North, East, West, all the 6 geopolitical zones, from a political party say, no, this is where it is going to. So, Imo Elders Council can move a step further because we still have people. Dan Iwanya is not from APC. He's a national chairman of a political party in this country. There are others like him. The Imo Elders Council is an association of several people, irrespective of their political affiliations. They can begin to move now to say, okay, in keeping, if you want to respect this Imo Charter of Equity, all the aspirants of Labour Party, Atanachonu from Okiwe Zone, Samdadi Anyanwu, the PDP candidate, please, gentlemen, step down so that the governor will have his unfettered 4 years in keeping with the Charter of Equity. If they are able to do that and get these candidates to step down for the governor,
well, we're saying the same thing, Barrister.
Law of reciprocity.
Just 1 second. We're saying the same thing.
You will sit down now.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second, Barrister. We're saying the same thing. But I just want you to, because your governor had said at that meeting with the elders, said he will, and he's quoted by the papers, he will implement the Imo Charter of Equity. The question then is how? Yes. If we are saying, just as you are saying, look, this is the beginning, let's take it from here and move it on up from, going forward. Like that. How is it going to be done? Just a second. How is it going to be done if there is no conversation with political parties, all political parties that have prominence in Imo State?
Okay, very well then. Now, the governor is the #1 citizen of the state. And he's a man that keeps his word. If the man gives you his word, you can take it to the bank. He's a very, very honest man. And if people play right and do the right thing, and he goes for under 4 years, mark my words, he will lead the crusade for power to move to Owerri zone after him. He will move it. The same way as a progressive governor
I guess
He
we
was
have to
part of
hold
those
you
who insisted
to
power
that
must
promise,
come to the
Barrister.
South.
We'll take that to the bank.
We'll definitely take that, you take that as your word as a spokesman to the president.
So my word means nothing to you?
Oh, your word has to, because you are speaking for the governor here. You are the special advisor to the Imo State Governor on strategy and policy.
That's why we're taking your word.
That's why we're taking your word.
That's why we're taking your word to the bank.
I'm the representative of, I'm the governor you're seeing here, Miss Representative.
Exactly. So, congratulations. Thank you for giving us your word. And thank you so much for being a part of our program this morning. Truly appreciate your time and your thoughts. Well, that's been a focus on Imo Charter of Equity. We're right back for another conversation. This time, let's talk about our home. We'll be right back. That was quite an earth, the background, water,
the beach, sand.
Or was it a beach?
I thought so.
That's waterside.
What exactly? Sand and water. That's the earth. And today happens to be Earth Day, April the 22nd. It's not for nothing that it is called Mother Earth, not Father. Go ahead, say it.
Please introduce our guests, please.
Mother Earth. And we are supposed to be celebrating Mother Earth today. And I'm happy to say that more and more we are learning how to look after Mother Earth, because it's been made very clear to us that if we don't look after it, in the end, it will kill us. So it's left us no choice, really. And I'm glad to, although the awareness in other climes, is a lot more than it is here, I'm glad to say that even here, the awareness is growing, and more people actually understand what all that talk about global warming, and environmental degradation, what all that means. Many more people, many more Nigerians are understanding that. So what's a good way to celebrate Earth Day? I would like to ask the founder of Lufasi Park, Desmond Majekodume, an environmental bishop, or has he become the Pope now? Desmond, are you now the environmental Pope?
Praise the Lord.
How are you, Desmond? Good to have you with us. And we also have the National Coordinator, Global Environment Facilities Small Grants Program, implemented by the United Nations Development Program, Ibironke Olubamishi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. You look bright and cheery, celebrating the Earth.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Desmond,
thank you, sir.
Many times you have come on this program and we have discussed the issue of awareness and how Nigerians are reacting to all these things they are hearing about the earth, and how if we don't look after the earth, well, we know what's going to happen. In your estimation, how is all that moving along?
Finally beginning to pick up. It's very ironic because 34 years ago today, my late wife and I celebrated our wedding anniversary purposely on Earth Day. And 2 years later, we released a record called Green Leaves, Mother Nature, talking, singing, rapping in my case, because I couldn't sing, so she wouldn't allow me to sing, about nature. Yeah, and apart from a few enlightened people in the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, like the late Chief S.L. Edu and the late Ambassador Alakaja and Philip Asiodu, and a few other people like that, others were thinking, these people are weird. What are they, singing about nature? However, 34 years later down the line, it is now beginning to come on mainstream. Many thanks to great media organizations like yours and some of the international channels are now promoting it and putting it out there. Partly because I think the wording, the nomenclature, when we call it environment, we know, okay, that's what it is. But the reality of what it is our life support system. Like you rightly alluded to a bit earlier, is Mother Nature. Is the mother not the life support for her baby? And we're all the little babies of this big Mother Nature on Earth. So the awareness is coming up, but it's not coming up quick enough because we're now reaching some critical points of no return. You know, a rubber band, when you pull it, it comes back, but it reaches a point of elasticity where it snaps. And we're close to that right now. Very, very close to that, whereby the earth will not be able to replenish itself enough to support mammalian life like ours if we continue this onslaught, because that's what we're doing. We're just wrecking her systems. Massive millions and millions of tons of pollution into the atmosphere, millions and millions of tons of pollution into the seas, into the waterways, into the earth systems, destroying of the forests in a massive way. She can't take it anymore. We're damaging her far too much. So the admonition is, don't bite your mama.
Don't bite your mama. I like that. Mrs. Oluwabisi, the first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970. And as of 20 years thereafter, about 140 countries were celebrating Earth Day. Do you have any idea how many countries are celebrating Earth Day now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lero, again. Thank you for having me. Well, I think that by the day, we have many more countries coming to it. I think the reason why we may not have the exact number of countries that are celebrating this is maybe because it's actually originated from America, the United States of America. And so at some point, some people feel that it's the World Environment Day that is global and it is not the Earth Day. But I say that whether it's originated from US, whether it's originated from Nigeria, the fact is that we have to take care of the planet Earth. We can't go on business as usual.
Yes.
And so the encouragement, and thanks again, just like Mr. Majekodumi said, thanks again to media houses like the Channels TV, who are making efforts to create more awareness and get people to learn more about what we're talking about. And each day, every day, you meet one person, you talk to one person. If you are able to change the paradigm, the thinking pattern of an average person, then of course I believe everybody can get into this stream of taking care of the planet. And when you ask Mother Earth, why is it called Mother Earth? Mr. Majekodumi has actually mentioned, said something, but like, we know that mothers are the nurturers. So the earth is meant to nurture us. But like he said, if you bite the mother too much, then of course you are also hurting yourself because you won't be able to get the food as you ought to.
Yeah.
You know, madam, we mentioned, this conversation around Earth Day earlier in the day. Gratifying, as you both say, that we have more and more people talking about, these issues and all. But you would agree with me that we still have quite some work to do to get at least 100 million people to be talking about this issue, because once we get to that threshold, I think it'll be so much better, so much easier to market environment issues, climate change, global warming, and all of those things. Do you think the understanding, not just the awareness, but the understanding of what environment issues are prominent to people, madam? How do we make it an issue we talk about all the time so that anyone and everyone, young and old, rural or urban dwellers, will be able to hold on to these issues and make Earth issues their own issues as well?
Thank you, Mr. Ayo. Yes, sure. What I tried to do, and what I think everybody should, who has awareness, like you said, we go beyond creating awareness, but how do we make people to really get involved? And I think the only way is if we can relate it to our daily lives, if we can relate it to how we eat, how we go about using whatever we are using, even to the clothes we are wearing, to using the drinking water, to the usage of water, and all the things that we take from the environment that we are consuming. How, if we think about it, I was talking with a couple of people recently, and I said, like, look, if you continue, for example, I was telling somebody that when you want to brush your feet, for example, the tendency that what many people do is that they just leave the tap running and they are brushing until they are ready to use the water to wash their mouth or their feet. In which case, you can actually take the quantity of water you need in a cup, and then you turn off that tap, and then you brush. I bet you would save at least 2/3 of the water you would have used to brush your teeth at that moment. By that, we are saving the environment. We are applying it to our lives. You want to throw away food. Have you asked yourself, I was telling also somebody that if you say something is a waste, have you asked yourself, is this the final thing that this thing can be that can be used for? It may not be useful to you, but it may be useful to another person. But what we tend to do is that, like I used to say, many people used to think that natural resources are infinite. They cannot finish. But of course, we have been proven wrong now. Well, another thing we can, even to somebody who is not educated, if you ask him, when I go to the communities, you ask somebody that, when last did you see, maybe a place where they used to see a leopard before, when last did you see a small, a bush animal? They say, oh no, 20 years ago. Then you tell them, this is what is happening. We have driven them away by our lifestyles. We build houses, we don't consider if those animals or plants have a use. And I bet you, the creator who created them have a purpose for everything that is created. We may not have discovered the use, but everything, there is nothing that is created that is useless. If we have that at the back of our mind, each time we are using something, each time, even on the farm, you are weeding your farm and you are throwing away something. You ask yourself, this thing can be put to something else. If the fact that I don't know it does not mean another person does not know it. So either you are educated, whether you did not go to school, everybody knows. Another thing I used to tell people in the village, in the communities, is that whereas most of the time we have meetings under the tree, and I'd ask them, how many trees were standing here 10 years ago? And they tell me, oh, no, it's gone. We have only this one or this one left. And then when it is very sunny, where do you go to? You want to have a meeting, for example, that we used to have, you have this village meeting and you go under the trees. In some cases now, you don't have that situation again. And so this kind of drive in the notion that, look, we can't continue the way we are exploiting nature, and we just have to do something about it.
Okay.
And I bet you some communities are actually, in fact, before, immediately you tell them, they go beyond what you are even telling them, and they are doing something. So I think we just have to continue with this individually, as a family.
Just find a way to humanize the issues.
Children now are catching this.
Okay. Well, let me ask Mr. Majekodunmi. Let's take it to urban development, or, yes, urban development, urban planning, physical planning, and all of those things. The most that some governments have done is to have two separate kinds of disposal bins, one for recyclables and one for non-recyclables and all. There are those who have also advocated that, you know, while growing up, they had small farms beside their houses or in front of their houses where they could just plant tomatoes, small vegetables, and all of those things. Alara is looking at me, and she's remembering those days. Now,
just that they were not farms. They were little gardens.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let's imagine that. I mean, do you see those things playing a role beyond just the different disposables for recyclable and non-recyclables? Is there anything urban development can do to help to sustain, invest in the planet?
Very, very good point. There's so many things the urban development can do and must do. And we need to keep re-emphasizing this. And I love what Zolubamishe said, that, we're looking on the resources of this planet as infinite. They are not. Planet Earth is actually, it's a tiny little speck. It's a little diamond in the cosmos. It's the only one that can support life, but it's a pretty small place. And our population is exploding massively. And the reality is that we are totally overtaxing it. She also alluded to the fact that the Creator put everything here for a purpose. And all the elements of creation, all the bio-elements of creation are living in harmony with each other, apart from the so-called flagship species, he that was made in the image and is still trying to acquire the likeness. Because believe you me, if we had the likeness of our Creator, the loving, caring, wonderful likeness of our Creator, we would not be doing what we're doing to the environment. It's just an extension of what we're doing to each other. Wars, massive killings, destruction, wiping out cities, wiping out children, all kinds of rubbish, nonsensical things. And then we're doing it to nature, and she is saying, no, you can't do this. And one of the ways that it's been impacting negatively, most negatively on nature, is the way we're developing our urban areas. Concretizing, and pretending that we can survive without nature. And we need to go back to that. We need to really, really adhere to very strict physical planning regulations and ensure that every development we do passes the litmus test of environmental impact. If it's gonna impact negatively on the environment, then it cannot be done. It's as simple as that. We've reached a critical stage. And this is where, sadly, so many people, especially the decision makers, are totally missing it. We've reached a critical stage. Mother Nature has given us a lot of chance. She's given us some warnings, some little tap on the head, and then a little bit of a shake. COVID didn't shake you up enough. Okay, that last huge storm that was unprecedented didn't shake you up enough. That flooding that came in, the desertification that's causing all kinds of breaking down of the societies in those places. Don't let her come and really hit us, because that's what she will do. She's obliged to do that. What you give her, she's obliged to give it back. What you sow, you reap. Yeah. Or can you plant cassava and harvest cocoyam?
Mrs. Oluwamishi, what is the meaning of carbon neutrality? And are we doing enough as a nation to deal with that?
Okay.
Did you hear me?
Thank you very much again. Carbon neutrality is simply for everybody to understand. It means that we should not input into the atmosphere more than what the environment can absorb and can process. Unfortunately, the story has been that we are emitting into the atmosphere, releasing into the atmosphere what is more than the capacity of what the atmosphere can take. And so that is what carbon neutrality is all about, in simple terms. And are we doing enough? No. If we're doing enough, then there will not be any reason for us to continue to advocate for environmental consciousness, environmental awareness, and taking part in environmental management. So we continue to do it because, like Mr. Majekodumi says, the elasticity, the capacity of the earth to sustain us, we are getting very close to the edge. And unfortunately, so many people still think, no, they're just talking. But even simple heat waves that we are talking about, simple rain pattern that has changed, everything is telling us that, look, it cannot be, we can't continue business as usual. It has brought about diseases that we are thinking that we don't know the source. Some people tell me that natural resource, they say that maybe natural resources are not, that they will replenish. Yes, they have a capacity to replenish. But when it gets beyond that capacity, then of course there is nothing. My lecturer told me in school that environment does not forgive. And that is what everybody should have at the back of their mind. What we call natural disaster, I tend to continue to argue it. We call it natural disaster because, of course, it comes from nature. But really, the cause of natural disaster, 90% of them are as a result of human activities. But we may not get the result immediately. We may not get the consequence maybe in 1 year, maybe even in 100 years. And then when it comes, we say it is natural, a natural disaster. And so we tend to exonerate ourselves from the cause of these things. And these are the things that we need to continue to think about. Carbon neutral, yes. In fact, the preaching now is that apart from sustainability means that, okay, it is important, we can have it tomorrow when we consume it today in a sustainable way. But now we are even saying that it is even possible for us to even do much more than the earth requires, so that we can catch up with what we have done, and then we can maybe kind of, if possible, go back to the normal way that environments used to be and the natural resources.
Well, you know, okay, so madam, I'm going to ask you, since you are the mother, let's explore how we can pass this on to children. As Alero asked you earlier, the whole conversation around Earth Day started in 1970. By my little math, that's more than 43 years ago. Now, those children born, no, that's 53 years ago. Children born in that year, some of them are already grandparents. Now, how do we communicate Earth Day, environmental consciousness, climate change, and all these conversations to little children so that they can grow up with the practice and we don't have to start afresh the way we seem to be rebooting the old ones now?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I like this question. Really, actually, when the story about environmental management started, you know, of course, we talk to the leaders, we talk to the adults, because they are in the position of authority to make changes, so to say. But maybe for one reason or the other, political will and whatever, individual preferences, we don't see what we want. And in a couple of years back now, we are now going back to the children. We go to the secondary schools, we go to the primary schools, and you need to see the way these children receive this message. Because when they can see the difference, good enough, Mr. Maja Kodumi has a project in Lagos State on urban farming. And we picked one of the schools, primary schools in Lekki there, to do the project. I was really thrilled. A girl came to the Lagos Business School and was telling us about environment. A primary school pupil came to school, they have their farms. They found that, I mean, all their environments where they was dilapidated, they were not doing anything with it. They even had to get money to raise fence so that the farms, nobody will tamper with it. And they get the information so fast that they go back to their houses and they tell their children. So they know it because when you show them that, look, if you do this, this is what you get, and we practice it and we show it to them, they tend to grab it more. And they know that, look, and I used to tell them, look, if you take any action now, in the future, you will see the result. So why don't you take an action that will give you a positive result later in life when you also become a leader? because this is what we are saying now. In Abuja, for example, we have a project raising climate champions in all the state schools in Abuja. And many of them have found even their career from that project, from that program alone. Some of them have won international award from it. And so it's encouraging them. All these plastics now in some of these schools, you hardly find plastic in those schools again. They're looking for ways of turning it to whatever thing that they can use it for. It's bringing out their creativity. And then they are using it also to, in a way, also managing the environment, trying to clean the environment, planting trees. We have schools where they plant trees now in Ilorin. We have over 20 schools that we helped, we supported, and they planted trees. They now have vegetables. I remember even during COVID, many of them came out and said, we have vegetables for sale, because they were growing vegetables, they were growing fruits in their gardens, and it's helping a lot. Students whom the classrooms have been blown off by roofs, when they see the effect of planting orchards, planting trees that holds the soil and then reduces the effects of wind on the roof of their classes, you don't need to do too much preaching again for them to embrace the mindset of environmental management. So we are making efforts, and we want others to join us to do that.
Okay. Now, Desmond, we're running out of time pretty fast. So the work that you have been doing all these years is now yielding some fruit, albeit not as large a fruit as you would like, but it is beginning to yield something. So should we therefore celebrate Earth Day this year? And what would be the apt way you would recommend for us to celebrate today?
Earth Day this year, and in reality, every day we should celebrate. When we just look at the marvelous miracles of creation, just our atmosphere alone, the way the gases are blended there to make this a life-supporting system, not to mention the way the biodiversity works together, everything should definitely be celebrated. However, we need to admonish ourselves, and I'm very optimistic, because we're Nigerians, and Nigerians are very much God-believing, and in a lot of us, God-fearing people. And we need to refer back to our scripture. And really, we should stop being hypocritical, because the scriptures are very, very clear that we should love our Creator and that we should love our neighbors. Our closest neighbor, obviously, are the most vulnerable, especially our children. And by the actions that we're perpetrating against this nature, instead of celebrating our wonderful, beautiful diversity and capacity to support life, our actions are deteriorating. In fact, we're working against nature, against scripture, which tells us that our method of dominion is in opposition to replenishment. And how can we not replenish the life support system that our children and our grandchildren will rely on? If we celebrate nature, then maybe we'll find it a little bit easier, because if you're celebrating and looking up to something, having awe. After all, our leaders, we have so much awe for them when they go in their siren and Your Excellency, all this thing, because they got a little bit of power. Nature has all the power that God gave us. So if we can have far more awe and celebration of nature, maybe we'll find it easier to care for her more effectively. Because as Mrs. Olubamiche said, we're running out of time, and we need to have a renewal of our minds. We need to have a change of attitude and be far more caring. We need to actually express love for our neighbor and not just say, okay, we're worshiping the God, we're praising the God that tells us to love our neighbor. So love nature, love your neighbor, and nature can love you back.
Love nature and hug nature today, kiss nature today, and celebrate nature. Because without nature, we wouldn't be alive. That's where we get our food from, we get our water. All our nourishment is coming from the earth. Happy Earth Day, everybody. Thank you very much, Desmond Majekodunmi, founder, Lufasi Park, and Ibironke Olubamiche, National Coordinator, Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program, implemented by United Nations Development Program. Thank you very much. Happy Earth Day to you.
PSA.
Right. So, in just a moment, we shall come back and we shall be talking about lifestyle. How does your interior, how does your home affect your lifestyle?
Personify you. How much of it is earthy? We'll talk about that when we return. Looking at that living room, you know, it just reminds me of that picture of the food. It's like the producers just have a way of setting you up.
Yes.
You just want to leave this place and just get into that picture.
Exactly.
And sitting there.
The pictures were so alive and so inviting.
So, exactly,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps the idea now is, what kind of person lives in that house? What's the personality? What's the intention?
I have a mental picture of the kind of person who would live in that house.
If I ask
Vibrant, full of life, active.
If I gave you a pen and I said, draw the person you see, you can't draw that person to save yourself.
I would draw it.
Oh, really?
I would draw it.
Okay. You can draw on this time.
Right down to the color of dress that she will be wearing. I would draw it.
Ha! Must it be a she?
It's a she.
Ah, it's okay.
It's a she.
Anyway.
Or it's a she who did the decor for a he.
Christ.
She's laughing.
Well,
What would you say?
Who is laughing? You will get to meet shortly.
What would you say?
Well,
it would be a woman.
Wait now, Haba.
Very expressive.
What is doing you? Sorry. What's up with you?
We're on air.
Oh, sorry. So, well, expectedly, your home is where you spend the most of your time. If you are working in Lagos, you have to find
That's not much time.
So it is your resting place away from the cacophony of the outside world and all of that. So experts say you can ensure the same quality of life for yourself by keeping certain things in mind while designing your place. This morning we have with us Bola Edwards, who is an interior decorator and CEO of Mary Edwards
Soft Furnishing.
Soft Furnishing. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
She was trying to ask you,
I'm still cracking up.
Why?
I'm still cracking a bit.
But what would you say about that?
She defined the person well. Somebody who is loud, very expressive, out there. So she's right.
So,
Well,
okay, you answer this question. What kind of person lives on a set like look at the set on TV,
hey, broadcaster.
What do I say? I comment for myself.
Well, the question really this morning for me is, how significantly does your environment personify you?
A lot. The environment really brings out either the best or the worst of you, depending on what you perceive around you. In interior designing, we try as much as possible to bring out, kind of personify your space with environment by matching you with where you are at that point in time. And that's why we'd like to discover where the soul of the space is in your space. It's always good to identify every home has got a soul. Oh. In that space, yes. Don't let us even go deep into that. So there's a soul in an environment. There's a soul in here where we're seated right now as we speak.
Where is it?
So the environment, I'll tell you where it is when we're done.
Okay.
By the time I do 15, 20 minutes, I can tell you for a fact, yes, where the soul is. So the environment is very key. You see people just want to get out of the boisterous Lagos and they want to get into their cocoon, they're very comfy, corner, get to their home. I like, now this is me.
Yeah.
But the environment out there, really, if you're not careful, can affect the way you live. But you can determine and define that environment.
How does it help your well-being?
It does. It does.
I expected you would say it does. That's why
it does.
That's why I didn't ask you a yes or no question.
It does, and that's. I'll give you a scenario of a client who said, "You know what? I don't like lights. I don't like bright lights in my room. I want everywhere dark. In fact, paint my wall black.
And my beddings, give me black beddings.
I want all dark shades.
Oh, God.
And for that kind of a person, that means he's probably is insomniac. He doesn't sleep well.
Okay.
Probably he has this sleeping under this, a lot of things, you know. So really, the environment out there at that time does not want that to have anything to do with his sleep and his rest.
Well, please tell that person that when he gets to 60 or 65 and he can't see, he'll be begging you to put the brightest lights in my house.
I know, right?
We have bright lights because we can't see.
I know.
It's not because it's not out of choice. We can't see, full stop.
And that's why your fonts have to be big.
Don't tell the whole world that you can read messages on my phone from where...
From where he is.
Yes.
So really, the environment has a lot to do with your well-being. It can determine your sanity. I mean, living in Lagos, everybody knows that Lagos is a tough place to live. And if you must stay sane, after going through all the boisterous, horrendous traffic, you must get into a space where everything is calm and cool.
You know, I'm happy you said that it helps with sanity. And I'd like you to help someone, you know, listening to and watching us right now. Reason for that is people are probably having some challenges with their environments. I move things around a lot in my home, but now it seems kind of conditioned. Previous places that I've been, I've moved everything around. Moved my TV around, moved my chairs around, moved my settees around, even my bedroom. I move things around all the time. Perhaps just to have some form of mental creativity or renewal of sorts. Help someone know how to get that done without necessarily breaking the bank.
Okay, simply put, a lot of us really do not know that what we see around us can give us that sanity that we're looking for. The colors you see around you, cluttering around in the home. At times you can just declutter and you're fine. You'll be so shocked at the transition.
The mental transition.
Mental transition.
Mental calmness.
Honestly, a lot of people, they clutter things they do not need. It affects them and they do not know. She's smiling. I don't know why.
I learned that a long time ago. So anything I don't need, I don't bother to I throw it out.
It won't take you much to declutter, to change the color, to flip furniture here and there, flip them around, throw carpets in the sitting room, do all white, to open up the walls. Because at times a lot of people are doing dark colors like red, the wine, they see it on the TV and they want to try it out, and it's not working for them. If you have to do that, then you must have good lighting to make sure that that place is bright. But if you don't do that, then there are other very simple things you can do. Just paint your walls white. Have a very simple furniture, not 7-seater. Like, people really don't do 7-seaters anymore, really. But if you're the kind of person that entertains a lot, why not? Put your sofas there. Throw a light color on the floor. Your TV set. No more pictures. Then I remember back in the day how our parents used to put a lot of pictures on the wall, to show the family gallery. There are ways that we do this now, that we can have a specific gallery designed in the home, and it's not all cluttered on the walls on the house. So really, you don't need to break a bank. You don't have to.
Okay, I know that she's just...
Move things around.
She's just getting her...
Okay.
Oh, you're thinking about it?
No, I'm processing.
Processing how to move things around. Now, you said something the other time, just a little while ago, about people seeing things that they like and they just repeat it at home and it doesn't work for them. How do you know what works for you?
That's why you need to speak to professionals like us.
Here we go.
Yeah. You need to talk to people like us.
She has to earn a living.
I know, right? Really, it's no brainer. You see something on the TV, you're watching Channels TV this morning, sunrise, like, I like the sunrise background, and you want to repeat it. in your own space. It just might not work. Number one, your space, the square meter space that you have will really determine if you have it. Then openings on the wall, like windows. How many windows did you see in that TV or in the movie that you watched? And you're like, I want to repeat it in my home. So those are things that you need to look at. The height of the ceiling as well. It also says a lot about the kind of decor you want to put in there so that we know how to project your curtains when you want to put the drapes on the wall. And don't let me say, I can't see all of this.
Well, you say some. Okay, so there are quite a number of places in the home. For those who have big homes, for those who have small spaces, all you have is a room and you want it to look like a palace. Or you have a 2-room apartment, you have a living room and a bedroom, or you have a full-fledged flat of 2 or 3 bedroom and all of those things. Are there things people need to look out for? You see, the reason I'm saying this is some people don't want to go home for whatever reason, and they don't even know.
Many men don't like to go home.
As I was saying, some people don't like to go home for whatever reason, even women. Some women don't even want to go because sometimes you just look all drab and draggy and everything like that. What are the things that they need to look at? And they probably don't even know why. Just looks all boring and all. What are the things to look out for in the kitchen, in the living room, in the bedroom that will make them say, I just want to run into my space?
Your space. Okay. I like when client calls us.
Before you go there, is there anything the person needs to know about their personality to influence their choices?
Absolutely. Your personality has got to do with the design, the space, and all that.
The colors.
That we're talking about here. You see some people, they're not so bright. They're introverts. You won't find such people with bright colors on their walls. You won't see them have red cutlery, red plates. You won't see them have red nails like me.
In other words,
probably do something very conservative.
In other words, so if such a person finds that they have such brightness around them, they may not be comfortable in the environment.
And they may not be able to express themselves very well. So really our personality types also determine, when you talk about the choleric, the personality types, sanguine and all that, it really does dictate the kind of decor that we should have as well. And you see some people, it's all white decor. Ceiling bottom is all white. Such people, they're vibrant. They're always happy. They are very expressive. They love to dress well. They just like everything very bright. They don't like to be claustrophobic. For the people that you just talked about now that they don't like going to their space, they're so bored. There's so little that they need to do, especially if they're a couple, then something is wrong. They have to complement one another. Perhaps the husband is choleric and the wife is sanguine, and the decor is just all over the place. That way they will need a professional to speak to them. But if you have somebody...
There you go.
Or are you saying...
There you go.
Are you stylishly saying that it could be the reason they are having marital problems?
Well, you'll be shocked to know that some men do not like to go home because they're smelling wee on the couch. They have towels thrown all over the bathroom door.
Oh, dear.
And the kitchen, the gas cooker is all dirty. I mean, I've had cases like that. That was actually what happened to them their first year of the marriage, and that was it. So really, it has a lot to do with home.
That was it, meaning...
It's home management. It's home management.
Marriage was over.
It was over, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. It's home management. You cannot give what you do not have. If you grew up in an environment where maybe things were being done for you, or you don't think there's anything wrong in you, seeing dusty coffee table every morning, and you just walk past it and
it doesn't
you're fine.
mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything.
Oh, dear.
You're fine. For someone like me, I'm already having a headache. I'm like, oh my God, Bola, go back.
Clean it.
My head is ringing.
OCD. I know one when I see one.
I've calmed down because that OCD is killing.
Well,
when I started having children, I forgot. No, I had to.
It's a lot of work.
No, OCD was. I mean, it was really. But when children started coming, I said, you know what? You will die early if you continue this way. Just keep it simple. Do what you have to do and leave the rest. And anytime you can do it, do it.
And at the end of the day, okay, go ahead.
Yet today there's technology, and you can also apply that to your home to make it more comfortable.
Absolutely.
So how does one select what technology one should incorporate into one's home?
If we were to go the top notch, Why don't you say
homes.
smart homes?
I knew it. I knew.
You read my mind.
Come on,
Let's
girl.
go smart homes. Why you don't have to lift a pin. Everything is done for you. Alexa is there asking you. Alexa,
you want to
I
put
want
up
my
the
coffee.
Want to put up the light?
The drapes are open. But really, the bit of the technology you can also make do with is we have what we call 3D. There's a 3D drawing that we use to design spaces. We will not have to go through the rigors of going back and forth. Oh, I'm going to the market. So I want to get this. We can actually have everything done in one sweep on the laptop and present it to the person and say, oh, this is how we can revamp your space. And it's all done within minutes. And of course, cleaning up and all of that as well. You don't have to do them by yourself now. Outsource them. Outsource them. People now you don't use broom like they used to do back in the day. People still use broom now, though, for tiles and all that, but you can have a vacuum cleaner clean your home. You can have a vacuum cleaner clean your drapes. You can, do so many things that will not have to take so much of energy from you.
In fact, you can have an automatic Hoover.
Why not?
Just tell it to move and it will
move around and you're moving and clean up the entire space.
Oh, my God.
Anyway.
If you've got the money, baby.
The ladies are doing what ladies do. Gents, thank you for spending the money.
Exactly.
In the meantime, we've only talked about the home. Other places that people spend a significant amount of their time.
Office.
Is in the office.
The office.
Yeah.
In Lagos and New York, you spend a lot of it in your car. As well.
Absolutely.
So, speak about the office. What are the things? Here, you literally have a local government because there are so many people, so many interests that have to be served and all of that. Are there things that need to be done in an organization where all shades of opinion, all shades of personalities, all shades of gender and all of that find themselves in a place?
Like, I see a lot of habitable co-working space these days where people have very open, often space and minimal decor. We call it minimalistic decoration. You're not putting too much of drapes. You're not doing drapes. People hardly do that in the office anymore. In fact, you leave your window bare so that you can encourage a lot of lights into the space. The furniture is very simple. And, of course, ergonometric, so that when you're sitting, it gives you that comfort and your back is safe. The furniture as well, moving around furniture must also be very easy for people to move from one space to another. In an office, again, of course, it has to be well, what I put it now, the hair there. Is either you want the natural to come in or you just want the place to be well conditioned. So you're not spending as much, yet you're getting a very beautiful, conducive environment in the office. Because really, the office space is somewhere, again, that you need to also have this place where you can express yourself and think so that the work you're doing can also go on very well. You have the Gen Z, the way they work these days, in fact, to see them, they're not all knotted up. They're wearing their shirts, their sneakers, all because they want to have a very ease, at work. So they get to work, they turn on the TV. There's a screen on the wall. They're watching CNN. You should have that kind of, media around the office space as well, so that people can also see what's going on outside. And the place is lively. You can have what we call it mural walls, where the wall is particularly designed for that space as a bespoke design, where it tells you something about that office. Yeah, it could be a painting, it could be drawings, it could be just something just to make the place lively as much as possible. Okay. Very important. So the office space is really, should be well decorated,
and anyway,
minimalistic.
Most people are working from home.
I know COVID was a turn
changed
the narrative.
Yes.
And we got a lot of calls from people, come to my space, I want my background look this and that. And a lot of people also discovered that they had a lot of torn sofas that needed to be reupholstered because they were not spending so much time at home. They now discovered that, I have holes in my sofa after all. I need it to be changed. They have some drapes that are already hanging in out. So they want to have that beautiful, decorated space and background when they're on the webinar, having their meetings. So a lot of people have actually moved their office home now. So they already have like a study vis-a-vis an office in the home, whereby they have a very good table, chair, they have a screen in there. They can do everything. And if there's any point in time that they need to get up, they just get up to ease themselves, or just go to the kitchen, pop something for them, and come back to the office space. So really, office in the home as well. I love to do that a lot because it's very easy. It's just, you just flip things around and, it's not taking you so much.
No, just this last one, because I know that we're running out of time. A critical element in all of these things, and I think for interior decoration generally, in the workspace they call it SHE, but in the home I think we can just leave it as space to move things around and all of those things. Is there a special skill you need at home to create safe space? And at the offices, how well do people know about safety, health, and the environment?
Okay, we call it health and safety, HSC. It can be applied at home, at office, or anywhere at every point in time. It just simply puts that anywhere you find yourself, it should be safe. We do what they call proof. I'm trying to the right word now. Especially when you have toddlers that are growing, we have the way we soundproof. We say when you soundproof somewhere, but the way you can baby-proof the house. To making sure that environment is safe for that child, making sure that you put a short gaze on the stairway if you have, a floor. Sharp objects are not around in the house. Then you don't see a coffee table that you like and you just want to go for it because it has sharp edges. That means at that time you cannot put that kind of furniture there. You probably will have to do something that is child-friendly. So, and also that goes for the office. You must have also your fire extinguisher. You must have your blanket in the kitchen just in case there's fire. A lot of us don't even know that there's the special blanket that you must use in the kitchen just in case there's a fire and all that. So health and safety must be very, very key.
I think this is a subject we need to discuss a little more elaborately because sometimes it just looks nice. I want to have it at home.
I know, right?
Whether or not it is safe, that's another thing altogether. It's something that I think we should consider the next time we have you around. Bola Edwards is Soft Furnishings.
Mary Edwards Soft Furnishings.
Mary Edwards Soft Furnishings. Thank you so much.
Not Bola Edwards, Mary Edwards.
Bola Edwards is CEO of Mary Edwards. Whatever that means. I'm not drawing the...
Bola Mary Edwards. Is it Mary Bola Edwards?
MBE. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Well, in the event that you start getting calls, just 10% here. We're right back after now for the home stretch. Please stay with us. Please. Please.
Welcome back to the home stretch. No, you're wrong. The guest is not Kofi. The guest is the other one. You know that one that they used to call Funky Malam?
No, please. Punky Malam.
Oh, Punky.
Punky Malam.
Punky Malam. That's the one who's our guest. And his name is actually Saeed Mohammed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
It's not very much.
It's not, sometimes when you pay me, it will turn to very much. When the cash flows, then the accent will change.
Your background is very interesting. He was born in Agbo.
I was born in Auchi.
Oh, Auchi?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Schooled in Agbo.
Started schooling in Agbo.
Finished in Umar here.
Yes.
And graduated in Kano.
Yes.
Only you?
Only me. That is, I'm Wazobia now.
That's it.
Yes. Transnational Nigerian.
Wazobia.
And that's, I think, what our kids are supposed to be doing, so that you'll be able to appreciate people's culture, religion, background, and everything.
I agree with you.
Exactly.
Which language do you speak from that area?
Igbo.
Edo and you speak Igbo?
Yeah, I speak Igbo.
Mogbe. You understand Yoruba?
Yeah, I understand Yoruba, but a little.
And you now
Because when I was coming to Lagos, the whole thing that I was carrying on my head was looking for money, no language again.
I like the honesty. I like. So when you finished in Kano, you headed to Lagos to look for money.
Exactly. So learning of language, I just dropped that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
So just
what
let's look.
exactly did you envisage that you would do to make the money when you got to Lagos?
Yeah, I think first it was the passion because I had passion in acting, music, and every other thing. Because when I was in school, most of the time we do this Miss Campus and all this. So I used to write my own song, then we use foreign instrumental to back it up and things like. So I was even thinking that I'm going to sing, but unfortunately my mother just is not in good terms with music. So I decided to switch into acting. Then I started writing my own script. So I took my script to Lagos to sell. And that was how the whole thing started.
Were you able to sell that script?
Well, nobody bought it because of that. I could remember that I had to go to Alaba, and so they will now tell me that I have to go to Onitsha. That is where their headquarters are.
Yes,
so,
Onitsha Market Literature.
Exactly. So I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Mr. Femi Lasode, then the producer of Shango movie. That time he just produced Shango, and the studio was of Evan Extra Studio at this in VI. So he now, when he went through the script, and he now said that it's a beautiful script, that means we can work together. So that was how the relationship started. Wow. Then they had already conducted an audition for Paradise Park, and that wasn't part of it. So he automatically gave me the role of Musa to play.
I find it very, very interesting. And I like how you started, that there's a culture we should have as a people, the culture of educating ourselves about our ethnicities, about tribes, and all those things.
Exactly.
But I don't know how easy it is to really market those things, because sometimes Southerners have to literally scavenge, look for, search for diligently music from northern Nigeria. Why is that so?
Well, I think the situation, parents especially, are not making things easy for children today. If a parent come back home and in front of your children and you started criticizing other tribes, you understand? So they listen to you, and they think these people hate us, and they imbibe. They carry that kind of thing into their head. They go to school. If if I'm an Igbo guy, the next guy come to me because his father actually says something negative about me. He started seeing that kind of a thing in me. And he doesn't respect me anymore. Sometimes he wouldn't even like to play with me. So, but then, whatever grudges you had outside with some other person, let it be between you. You can say that you are all Nigerians. See it from that manner. But then try to teach your children how to respect people's culture and tradition and how to bring them together. It's none of your business. You understand?
It's strange because Yes, you can pass on your prejudices to your children.
Exactly.
But a child does not ask you where you are from before he becomes your friend.
Exactly. Exactly.
I like this boy. I'm going to play with him in class. Full stop.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So it's like, when you look at, sometimes you now find religious crisis, then you wonder, is that what God actually said we should do? God created all of us, decided to make us of different tribes and race and all these things. They didn't make it so that we could come and be killing ourselves. No. Do you understand? Like, I listened to one of the scholars talking about the prophet, looking forward to kind of addressing a certain issue where a pagan came to the mosque where the prophet and the disciples were sitting down and started peeing there. And they wanted to talk. He said, no, allow him to finish. And when he finishes peeing, he now called him. He said that, look, why did you have to desecrate our worshiping this thing where we worship? And it's like, we don't do things like that. Can you go to the place that you worship and do the same thing? He says, no. He said, please don't do it next time. And the guy was just cold-hearted. And it's like, he now prayed and said, God, put me and this Muhammad in paradise. And these other ones that wanted to talk harsh to me, that you just put them in hellfire. And he said, no, we don't pray like that. You pray equally for everybody. So, but if it is in this era now, that guy is a dead man. No? You enter mosque, go peace.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
You don't die with that now.
I agree.
So where did we see that from?
It brings me to your industry. Is it a kind of thing that plays out in any way, manner, shape, or form?
Yeah.
Really?
I think this issue, I don't know how it started, because we're looking forward to seeing that maybe this generation would have made things easier. You understand? But gradually, I think maybe, let me say, politicians are the ones that are destroying this country, because I have to win a certain seat. So because of that, I have to use all sorts of diabolical means to get that seat. And it doesn't matter how I get it. If it is to disfranchise, to disintegrate the unity and whatever, I have to do it. This is what is killing this country now.
Isn't it all about in your industry? Isn't it all about making money? Is there a Hausa money, Igbo money, Yoruba money?
My brother, the point is that it is so surprising at the end of the day. And so many issues in the industry today, but then it's supposed to be based on merit when you are casting. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be because I'm doing a Yoruba movie that it has to be 100% Yorubas because it is Yoruba movie. As long as you are fluent in Yoruba, you can come in, and we see it happening. And then the same thing when you're an Igbo, it doesn't matter. Recently, this guy, a producer that lives in Canada, Pascal Atuma, and he invited me.
We interviewed him.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. He invited me into his movie and asked me to play an Igbo character. And later he was even telling me that his friends were saying that, why would you call an outside guy to come and play Igbo character? He said, because I've sat with him and he speaks Igbo with me, so I'm comfortable. And when I started doing, so people started, are you real Hausa? You understand? So there are a lot of things for us to exploit, for even people to see the other side of us.
Yes, there are a lot of comedians around. How has it been for you being a Hausa comedian in Lagos?
You remind me of Bendel girl in Lagos.
Exactly. It wasn't easy at all, because sometimes when some other people kind of recommend you, that was a guy, no, I don't think that man will play that role. So there's to believe, not knowing that. I read mass communication, for God's sake.
Not theater arts. Not theater
it's mass communication. When you saw me doing this accent and all this, I'm just depicting a character. That wasn't me. And that tells you that what kind of producers do we have?
Yeah.
How did they think? Are they creative? So until time came that somebody just decided to help me to break that jinx, Otherwise, I've been stereotyped completely.
You say in your write-up that you are the son of a cattle dealer.
Exactly.
How did you end up in school?
Well, my parents never went to school, and my father, came from a very comfortable family, but he decided to run out of home at his tender age. He's a rascal.
And go and live his own life.
And live his own life, and, there's that thing that we believe that when your father is rich and is comfortable, some of your siblings from the other side will now cast some spells so that they will now chase you away. Because if the father died, you are the one that is going to inherit everything. So you just go away and leave it for them. So that was the kind of story, but me, I don't believe any story that comes. I just believe in my own lifestyle that I just have to move ahead. So I think that was the kind of thing that, but I don't care. So, but all I knew is that when he came out, he became successful. So that means you don't have to inherit your parents' whatever before you become successful in life. So he was hustling. He was, in fact, he was even grazing other people's cows in the forest. You know, sometimes they'll have to, buy cows and then you take them from one state to another through the bushes as a nomadic. And that was how he started making money.
This going to school thing is majorly a woman's thing.
Exactly. But then my own mother's side, though my mother did not go to school, but her my uncle and then the other side of us, his children have gone to school, and then so they were educated. So because of that, my mother had interest in schooling. So when he got married to my mother, and then we started coming. Then at the end of the day, schooling was okay. Then she decided that they should enroll me. And
she agreed that you should go to school?
Yes, of course.
But allow me to go into your industry because we have less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about this stereotyping, or rather de-stereotyping that was done for you by somebody else.
Exactly.
I've always thought that Alibaba, for instance, should be casted as a houseboy.
Exactly.
In a movie for once, not just always a rich man. Ejide Kosoko should be a Molue driver in a movie, just so that we can de-stereotype.
Exactly.
These let an RMD, for instance, play a garage tout.
Exactly.
Just let's know that these guys are actors indeed, and they don't have to, always.
Because an actor has to be flexible.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in terms of your industry, you've mentioned a few challenges. What are some of these things that you think need to be done in order for the creative arts in Nigeria to play its role in national development?
I think we need more educated and believable producers and directors. People actually that are very creative and actually knows the up and down of movie making. This will help a lot because once you come, they believe they can change you, they can switch you to any role. And that actually, attracts the people that comes to watch a movie. Because I've been seeing you playing big man, the next thing the producer or the director switched you to play a tout, and I will really want to see how you play that tout. And you make money with that. That's why I like somebody like Kule Afolayan. Exactly. The movie that we just finished, I was just shocked. He gave me a script, and when I went there, he changed my character. And I have to start calling an Ibira man always to be asking me what to say. Do you understand?
Now that's cool.
How to say it.
Exactly.
That is cool.
You now see me speaking Ibira in that movie, but I was not told that I'm going to play it. It was when I just came to the camp, he now looked at me and said, no, I want you to play this for me.
Oh dear.
Exactly.
That's a director.
And we killed it.
and do you see any form of segregation, like gender segregation or whatever in your industry that need to be addressed, and by whom?
Well, I think we have come of a time that people actually wants to make money, especially with the availability of the international, platform like Netflix and Amazon and others. So it wasn't business like before that. In those days, you actually know you are just producing to take it to somebody, so you don't care who you cast. You understand? So that actually happens in those days. But now, by the time you take it to these people, these are international bodies. When you take it to them and it is rubbish, they'll send it back to you.
Straight.
So now it is business for professionally.
Mm.
The casting must be perfect. Everything must be online before you be able to sell your job. So, except if you want to lose your money, then go and do friendship or gender, or whatever.
Otherwise.
Exactly.
Otherwise.
Exactly. Otherwise.
What are you working on right now?
Well, I'm working on a project for real that looking at. We've started putting up the script, and I've started talking with the people that are going to sponsor the movie. They had interest in it, and in fact, they were the one asking me about the script, but the script writers are kind of a little busy, so they were the one delaying for now. But I don't want to kind of bring it out for now until we are fully ready.
It's
so I will return here and then we'll talk more about it.
It's allowed.
Exactly.
Well, all we can do is wish you all the best now, Punky Malam.
Thank Thank you very much.
Punky Malam.
Punky Malam.
Punky Malam. You know, you have to punk it. I give it a weight.
Punky Malam.
Punky Malam.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Born in Auchi, grew up in Agbo, then went off to Kano to go and get his degree.
Yeah, I'm at secondary school in Jos.
Hey! A well-traveled Nigerian.
Exactly.
Well, that's what Nigeria needs, really, so we can learn to appreciate each other more.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
And closing Sunrise for us today.
Yeah.
So that's our show for today. You have been watching Sunrise on Channels Television, and you shall watch a new edition next Saturday. See you then. My name is Alero Idu, wishing you all the best.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. It's still Salah, but not the one they kill meat. Bye for now. Just